World leaders have already started voting against the Iranian regime, and now the pressure is directly targeting the dictatorship, which uses the Revolutionary Guard to hold on to power by force. This Monday, May 11, 2026, the crisis is not only in Tehran. It is in Geneva, Brussels, New York, London, and in government meetings that treat the regime as a political, nuclear, military, and humanitarian threat. What is being voted on is not the Iranian people. What is being voted on is the military dictatorship led by the bloody Revolutionary Guard, which represses civilians, threatens neighbors, defies international inspectors, and uses fear to stay in power. I'll tell you all about that in a moment, but right now, you'll want to subscribe to the channel to stay well informed. Real-time information with the best journalistic quality you've ever seen. Milson Alves News, the standard for credibility. Did the response come after brutal repression inside Iran? Reuters reported on January 17, 2026, that a human rights group had already put the death toll at 3,090. 2 days later, Reuters itself published that an Iranian official, without identifying themselves, admitted at least 5,000 confirmed deaths. The final number remains difficult to confirm because the regime cut off the internet and tried to control the flow of information, and that's where the main point comes in. While Tehran's propaganda tries to sell strength, the political world is treating the regime as a case of moral collapse. At the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, there was a vote on January 23, 2026 to extend the International Investigative Mission on Iran for 2 more years. The decision also called for an urgent investigation into recent violations and crimes related to the protests. There were 25 votes in favor, 7 against, and 14 abstentions according to human rights organizations that followed the session. In practice, this puts the regime under prolonged international scrutiny, with material that can be used in future proceedings. In Europe, the pressure became even more direct. The European Union Foreign Affairs Council met in Brussels and adopted new measures against 15 individuals and 6 entities linked to repression, arbitrary arrests, and intimidation against Iranian civilians. Among the targets were high-ranking officials, commanders of the Revolutionary Guard, and members of the security forces. The European Union also expanded measures related to Tehran's drone and missile program because of the increased Iranian military support. The European decision was more than just a symbolic punishment. The bloc already maintains sanctions against Iran for human rights violations, nuclear proliferation, and military support to Russia. These measures include asset freezes, travel bans, restrictions on equipment that can be used for internal repression, and a ban on financing listed individuals and entities. The European Union has also decided to renew sanctions for human rights violations until April 13, 2027. This shows that the pressure is not from a single meeting, it is a continuous policy against the core of the regime's power. The Revolutionary Guard has become the focus of this pressure because it is no longer seen just as an Iranian military force. For several governments, it operates as a state, with an armed wing, economic influence, involvement in internal repression, regional activities, and connections with external networks. European reports have noted that the European Union has started treating the Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization, ending years of internal division on the issue. The head of European diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, stated that repression cannot go unanswered. This statement shows that Europe is not just complaining about Tehran. It is voting, sanctioning, and isolating the machine that supports the dictatorship. The G7 has also joined the pressure campaign. Ministers from the main industrial democracies said they are deeply alarmed by the high number of deaths and injuries in Iran and condemned the deliberate use of violence against protesters. This message was direct. If the Revolutionary Guard continues to crush its own people, the regime will pay a political, diplomatic, and economic price. In London, the debate also moved forward. The British Parliament discussed the possibility of banning the Revolutionary Guard and treated the issue as a national security threat. In February 2026, members of parliament demanded a tougher response in the face of the repression in Iran. In May, reports in the United Kingdom pointed to new legislation to punish people who act as representatives or instruments of foreign powers, including networks linked to Iran. The point is simple. The pressure has moved from the diplomatic sphere into the realm of domestic security of Western democracies. In the United States, the White House turned the Iranian crisis into a test of strength on the international stage. Washington took a draft resolution against Iranian actions to the UN Security Council and sought the support of Gulf allies. Reuters reported that China and Russia were still seen as likely obstacles because of their veto power, but the American move exposed the reality. Even when Beijing and Moscow try to protect Tehran, the regime is seen by the world as a problem to be contained. Marco Rubio called the resolution a test for the UN itself, pressuring other members not to protect the Iranian dictatorship. The nuclear issue adds weight to this pressure. Recent history shows that Iran has reacted against resolutions from the International Atomic Energy Agency, threatened retaliatory measures, and made it difficult to verify its nuclear program. In 2025, after a new international condemnation, Tehran passed a proposal in parliament to suspend cooperation with the agency, heightening concerns about external oversight of nuclear facilities. This kind of reaction strengthens the position of the United States and its allies. The regime wants diplomatic protection but rejects transparency when it comes to inspections. The Iranian dictatorship tries to project defiance, but it needs to shut down the internet, arrest protesters, intimidate families, control hospitals, censor news, and increase executions to stay in power. Amnesty International stated that since January 8, 2026, the authorities have cut off internet access to hide crimes related to repression. Human rights organizations have also reported an increase in secret executions, with cases linked to protests and political accusations. A stable regime doesn't need to turn every young person with a cell phone into an internal enemy. The Iranian regime is being pushed outside normal diplomatic relations. It is not treated as a regular government at several international forums. It appears as a human rights violator, a proliferation threat, a supplier of military technology for war abroad, and the force behind harsh internal repression. In Geneva, they vote for an investigation. In Brussels, they vote for sanctions. In London, they discuss banning the Revolutionary Guard. In New York, the United States tries to push a resolution against Tehran. Each meeting strips another layer of legitimacy from the dictatorship. History shows that ideological regimes begin to crumble when they lose two things at the same time: the external fear they used to unite their base and the international acceptance they relied on to survive. It was like that with apartheid in South Africa. For years, the regime tried to claim that external pressures were attacks against the nation. But the combination of sanctions, diplomatic isolation, cultural pressure, condemnations in international organizations, and internal resistance destroyed the image of that system as normal. The world did not overthrow South Africa. The world isolated the regime that had captured South Africa. The difference matters. The same reasoning applies to Iran. The target is not Persian civilization, nor the Iranian people, nor their history. The target is the structure that puts the Revolutionary Guard above the population, above the ballot box, above families, and above international rules. When a dictatorship needs to prove its strength by killing its own civilians, it has already lost its moral authority. Other nations show the same pattern. In Myanmar, generals tried to use repression and censorship to maintain control, but the result was isolation, sanctions, and loss of political recognition. In Venezuela, institutional destruction and repression also made foreign governments stop treating the local authorities as a normal democracy. These examples are not exact copies of what is happening in Iran, but they show a clear logic. When a regime relies on military apparatus, propaganda, censorship, and fear, every international meeting against it carries more weight than a speech. The dictatorship may be able to resist for a while, but it shrinks internally and externally. The Iranian regime still has allies, still has propaganda, and still has repression, but its international image has changed. Those who once tried to project strength now seem surrounded by votes, sanctions, investigations, and meetings that treat the Revolutionary Guard as the centerpiece of the collapse. I'm Alves, an internationalist, and my purpose is to keep you accurately informed every day. The news links are in the video description. Like this video, subscribe, and check the comments at the end to engage more with the Milson Alves news community.